Welcome back. You are watching The Fix. Joining me now to continue the conversation is Sunday Times columnist, as always, Peter Bruce. Peter, good evening. Welcome as always. Yes. Yeah. I mean, let's get straight into Eskom. I mean, that is where one of the investments has been made. I know you want to ask very particular questions about what that money is going to be used for.
Well, absolutely. And there are particular questions. And good evening, DG. It's lovely to have you here. There's so much money floating around, right? So there's Brics Bank money floating around, and the president has come back from the Middle East with promises of investment, and the Chinese president was here the other week promising a lot of investment as well. What, in terms of the Brics investments in South Africa, in Eskom, what do they expect in return?
Look, I think let me put my head as a NDB director for a while. I think we need South Africa's advancement. We need South Africa to advance, to address these developmental challenges. That's one. Now, as a Treasury DG, what we have is not just enough. And it's important that, as you correctly say, there should be money floating around. Sure. And what we should ensure is that money is used appropriately for the right things.
But if it's an investment, is it an investment or a loan is what I'm asking, I suppose. Does it have to be repaid?
It will have to be repaid, definitely. It will have to be repaid.
Is it denominated, the loans to Eskom, the Brics Bank loans, are made in rands or dollars?
For now, it is dollars.
Right.
But we have said as a bank, and it's our policy, and we've decided on that we should advance local currency loans. Yeah. And then we're advancing that. We'll be soon issuing a local...
Which is how you operate in the markets.
Yes. Yeah. So that we ensure that we maximize our participation in the bank in a way that suits us as a country. We've started that in China. We're doing the same in Brazil, and we know we can easily raise a bond here because our capital markets are, very, very strong.
And the loans to Eskom, I think one of them is $300 million.
300 million. Yeah.
That's to do something very precise, or is it to spend as Eskom?
No, it's something precise. It's not just a loan for everything and for overheads. No, it's focused on projects, IPP projects that are there to advance them further.
So this is renewable energy.
Renewable energy projects, yes. Right. And it's the same as what we have given to the DBSA to advance some of those projects. And it's quite important that we actually advance those projects.
So there are actually conditionalities. I mean, that is the subtext of what Peter is asking, really. What are those conditionalities in relation to Eskom? We saw, for example, the president of Russia, Mr. Putin, put the question of nuclear energy on the table. We saw President Ramaphosa's answer saying we can't afford it. The Chinese have advanced this money largely. What is it that they want, like Peter said? What specifically do they want us to do in relation to the kind of energy that we put in our energy mix?
It does not. First, let me put it categorically clear that is not including nuclear in the loan that the NDB gave to Eskom. Secondly, that each and every loan that we advance has got conditions in them, both soft and hard conditions in terms of what the money can be used for.
Spell them out for us.
Currently, it will be just ensuring that we advance the IPP program, advance renewable energy projects in South Africa. And those projects could be spelled out in detail. There'll be monitoring teams from the NDB. As per the money spent, there are a threshold in terms of the disbursement.
Is it significant that what we call the Eskom loan is in fact being run through the DBSA? In other words, it's not being given to Eskom?
No, it is being given to. These are two separate things. Okay. It is being given to Eskom.
And the money running through the DBSA
it's a separate. It's with the DBSA to advance some of it. The DBSA will on lend that money, by the way, which is something a first, which is a first for us and a first for South Africa, and that's what distinguishes the bank, the NDB, from other multilateral development banks. The World Bank, for instance, would not have done something like that. But this is a first for the NDB, and it tells you that the NDB is filling a space, a vacuum that was there. And in
now,
terms
of course,
its
anybody who puts their money into anything wants to know that that money is going to be well managed, that there are competent people that is going to execute the responsibilities, and as Peter has said, that the monies will be repaid on time. We've just had a story break this weekend about a Treasury report, a draft report that confirms what is called Eskom's inside job, which relates to looting. And this, of course, goes back back to the heart of state capture. You've commissioned this report. What I want to find out, the report says very clearly that you need to inform the Hawks as a matter of urgency, that Mr. Machela Koko, Mr. Anuj Singh, and a range of other people have been implicated. Can you confirm for us, Director General, if the Treasury has been in touch with the individuals mentioned in this report, as well as the law enforcement agencies, and when are they likely to take action against someone like Machela Koko and Anuj Singh?
Let me take you back a little bit before I respond directly to your question. That you will recall that this process didn't start now. We started last year in a review that we embarked on a procurement spend of Tegeta and its operations within Eskom. And based on that review, we then decided, after a review was done internally, that there's a need here to embark on a forensic investigation. And that review report was made available even to Parliament last year. On the 23rd or 26th of July, sometime last year, we then authorized a forensic investigation to be undertaken on the Tegeta coal contracts. Terms of reference were issued at the time. A procurement process was undertaken, and Funduzi Forensic Service was awarded this contract. It took a little bit of time for them to start work, which they started in February of this year. Since then, we contracted with them. They did some work, and then the draft report is available. Now, this draft report was released on Friday, was released to all stakeholders, everyone who's mentioned in there, whether it's from Eskom, individuals in Eskom, including everyone who is attached to everything that happened at Eskom. As part of the process of this forensic, we not only did we focus on Eskom, we also looked at some aspects in Transnet, and that's why the report also makes reference to Transnet, and then the report is available. So this report is a draft report. It will 14 days. Respondents have until about 2 weeks from now to respond to it, to confirm or deny whatever is in there. And once that report is available, we'll make it available. Available to one, Eskom itself, and the board must deal with that, and also the Department of Public Enterprises, where Eskom is located, and they will have to deal with that. Now, in terms of what the report says around criminal action that should be taken against, again, it is a report that's available that the criminal investigation authorities can use as they wish, so that and whoever has committed any wrongdoing can be brought to book. So all I'm saying is that we embarked on a process to review the coal. A clear indication was that there's a need for a forensic investigation. That forensic investigation now has a draft report is available. The final report will be available in 2 weeks. It will be available again to Eskom to use. The board there they can use. If at any given point in time is found out that each individual is should be held accountable, that's going to be the process. But it was independently done, and we think it was done above board.
You're the publisher of the report, though, so you've distributed it to the people who are implicated in it. You say it'll be ready in 2 weeks, DG. Will you make it public in 2 weeks, or it's already been leaked? Obviously,
we did not
Sure.
issue to any other person other than those that are in the list.
Yeah.
So, if you look at the press release that we issued last year, when we were questioned about this particular process, we did indicate at the time that once the report is available, we'll make it available. I think it's only fair that we keep to our word.
As the Director General of the National Treasury to march off to a police station, once you get the replies, let's say Machela Koko, Brian Molefe, they all reply to you, you look at their answers, thank you very much, you even might put some of them into the report. You can yourself go down to a police station and say, these gentlemen here have stolen the following amounts of money from Eskom and the South African public. We would like to charge them, please.
Yes.
Look, I think, I wouldn't want to take that responsibility. I mean, there's an Eskom board, which we expect that once the report is available, they must act. I also expect that the Department of Public Enterprises should act, because clearly Eskom is an entity that squarely report to the Department of Public Enterprises. But however, I must mention that obviously, because we are the custodian of public finances, we will be looking at that very closely in terms of action to be taken when need be.
Peter?
No, go ahead. I want to just, you carry on, I'll come back. I want to come back to the Chinese investment.
Yes, what I want to ask specifically here is that it has been, according to this report, Mr. Anoj Singh lied to Parliament. There is evidence in this report that suggests that the prepayment isn't regular. Mr. Machela Koko is tweeting up a storm on Twitter saying, see here, I haven't done anything wrong. This is nothing out of the ordinary. DG, from where you're sitting, in terms of the findings of this report, what Machela Koko and Anoj Singh did, was it routine or is it irregular? And more so, does it actually point to illegality?
Look, Karima, let me start by saying, I mentioned to you, it's a 409-page report, or just a little bit more than 400 pages. So, and like any other person, I was looking at it for the first time on Friday night, and it's a nice read.
Yeah.
I'm reading it. I don't want to have any view until I have read it, until I have seen the responses from Mr. Machela Koko and others, and then at the appropriate time when the final report is available, I think at the time, every one of us should have a view, but currently
but let
it
me
is a
read
draft
to you
report.
what it says. It says the findings went on to say Singh and or Eskom did not negotiate the 3.5% discount as said discount was offered by Tegeta prior to the BTC's approval of the prepayment. Singh may have led the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises when he indicated that he negotiated that 3.5% discount as the documents indicate that he did not do so. That is unequivocal.
If the report, I still have to get to that maybe, but if the report says so, and if the report says some people misrepresented, then I think the appropriate processes.
What are those appropriate processes?
Firstly, it could be sanctioning by the board, by Eskom action.
They've already lost their jobs, right?
Yes.
They've resigned. So what other sanction now?
Look,
how do we, first of all, recover the money? How do we hold them accountable? What is it that Treasury wants to have happen to Mr. Koko and to Mr. Singh?
I think appropriate processes in law that give Mr. Koko and
should they be charged?
They should be charged. If there was any wrongdoing, if there was any, as the newspaper suggests, that there was any looting and it can be proven as such, they must be given an opportunity to say their side of the story. They must be tried in a court of law, and if they are found guilty, let the law take its course. Yes, and if they are not found guilty, obviously we should be able to say, apologize if we have to.
A quick question before Peter goes back to the investments. In all of this time, we know that the Hawks is supposedly conducting an investigation into 17 instances of state capture. Has any of the Hawks investigators come to you as the accounting officer in the National Treasury to get your version either on, for example, what happened at Eskom, what happened at Transnet, the Estina dairy farm, any aspect of the state capture reports? Have you ever been questioned by the Hawks?
Not at this stage, but I know they have been engaged with some of my colleagues. We've got a division in the Treasury called Specialized Audit Services, which essentially deal with your forensic investigations. I know they are in close contact with our colleagues in there because some of the information, direct information they would request would lie in the division. But I haven't been interviewed by the Hawks on this matter.
Or any other law
not at all,
enforcement
not at
agency?
all, as said. But I think, look, in the course of investigation, it is something that I think at some point they will have to come to us. Yeah. And we have always said, even in the budget speech, if you remember, we've always said, to a point where we even said we'll make resources available for the State Capture and Commission of Inquiry to actually embark on this project. So I think there's no other better commitment that we gave other than saying at the budget, during the budget in February, that will make money available to the Commission to do its work. And that's what we have been doing so far.
Are you confident that the Hawks, sorry, before I get to Chinese investment again, are you confident the Hawks have got the expertise and knowledge to investigate this? Do they know what's wrong with what's occurred?
Do they know which laws have been broken?
I obviously don't know. I mean,
okay.
I mean, look,
right.
I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, but
look,
I don't have doubt. Though, Karim, I think it must be fair. I don't have doubt. We have an institution in the Hawks. We have an institution in the police.
Do you trust them?
I trust the police. I trust the Hawks because I think they just work like me. These are most of them, and in fact, if not all of them, most of them are committed public servants like I am, committed public servants to ensure that they perform their functions to the best of their ability. So I don't doubt I don't doubt them at all. I don't doubt the police and the law enforcement agents.
I want to ask you about Chinese investments. So the BRICS Bank, do you regard the BRICS investments, can we call them just Chinese investments?
No. You cannot go there. You cannot go there. This is not Chinese.
Okay.
We equally, by the way, all 5 of us, all 5 countries equally own the bank.
Right.
So whatever happens in the National Development Bank, we are equally responsible.
Gotcha.
And so it's just so happened that the bank is in China.
Okay. And so when President Xi Jinping arrives and we suddenly hear that he has now pledged investment in South Africa of, was it $4.7 billion? I can't remember the number.
It's sizable. If you look at the forecast,
no, it was 14.7, right? It was 14.7 billion. Now, do you regard that as money in the bank, or do you know what he's talking about? Do you know what is going to happen to that money as National Treasury, or is it just a promise out there in the air that he makes while he's visiting on a state?
No. Let's not regard it as a promise in the air, like any other promise that we have so far. I think it's up to us as South Africa to ensure that we engage with the Chinese if we have to. We approach those Chinese development banks if they are there and say, here's a list of our projects.
But now this is now as South Africans,
as South Africa,
not
yes,
you
as South Africa, yes.
Okay.
These are our needs. Can we enter into a collaboration whereby we know you have the money, we have the need?
And can I ask whether you would expect that money to be repaid in rands or dollars?
We'll negotiate at that time when the money has to be signed.
Because people say that you've got to be really smart when you're negotiating with the Chinese. And there are examples, as President Xi builds his Belt and Road around Asia and come down to Africa, of things that have gone wrong. They've built a port in Sri Lanka that the Chinese now own because the Sri Lankans couldn't pay for it, and they bought 25 square kilometers around the port.
Precisely. So final question, what happens if we don't repay? And how exposed is our entire economy if we don't make good on these loans?
For instance, if I can add to the final question, if we use it to build a dam on the Umzimvubu River in Transkei, for instance, I don't know how much it would cost, but a lot of money. People say there'd be no point, but we would have borrowed money to do it. How would we pay them back?
Look, it's easy. I think for every investment that you make, we have to go through our rigorous processes. For us as Treasury, for instance, to guarantee any loan, we have to satisfy ourselves that the ability of the project to pay itself is clear. Then we can give it a tick and then decide on giving guarantee. But if not, we then have to ask ourselves, is this project feasible enough? So those basics in project appraisals should be in place. And the ability of the project, if they go to the TCTA, for instance, to issue a loan, we should be asking ourselves, will they be able to repay?
Thank you very much, DG. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We always need more time for you, of course. Thank you so very much. That was, of course, the Director General in the National Treasury, Mr. Dondo Mohajane. Next up, the week ahead.